Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the live studios here in the most beautiful and gorgeous and huge, humongous temple room of Sri Sri Radha Nilamadhava and their devotees. Srila Prabhupada sitting across from us. Thank you. So we have a little change of scenery. We've gone to Radha Lane, to Radha Nilamadhava room. Temple room. Welcome to all of you who are tuning in. We're a little bit late because we're having this whole setup for this. Anyway, I'll let you guys handle that part. Yes. Srimad-Bhagavatam. How Maharaj Pariksit greeted the Kali Yuga. Chapter 16. Canto 1. But before we read, we're going to read Srila Sanatana Goswami's wonderful, deep glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam in his Sri Krishna Lila Stava. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarvalokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of light, only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwan Duditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshak Shadayate Sarvada Sabasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Mannishtadagamad Bhagya Madananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Sadhu Tadayin Atini Chochatakara Hanamuncha Gadachin Mam Prem Narit Kantayospuda. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. For those of you who haven't participated in this nightly reading that we've been having for the last, I've been doing it for the last 4.5 years, every day, without missing a day. But we've been recording it live stream for the past, more than 3 months, 3.5 months. We have more than 100 recordings so far. Yes, and we have about 700 followers out there in cyberspace, somewhere or another. So, this is, how do I say, crusade I'm on a crusade to enliven as many people, as many devotees as I can, to hear Srila Prabhupada's books read directly. And the results, I must say, have been outstanding. Everywhere we go, new Westerners are coming, and devotees who have lost their taste for reading and hearing Srila Prabhupada's books are getting the taste back. And I have this vision that if we keep doing this, eventually Srila Prabhupada will be again solidly in the center of our movement. Okay, so here we are. How Pariksit received the age of Kali. Chapter 16, Canto 1, Srimad-Bhagavatam. Why is everyone sitting so far away? Because the room is so big and you think you have to fill it up? Everyone should come close, unless you can't for some reason or another. Text 16. Maharaj Pariksit, that's much better, isn't it? It reminds me of the room we usually use. Hare Krishna, Haribol. Okay. All right, that's better. This is too restricted. Yeah. Okay. Maharaj Pariksit heard that out of his causeless mercy, Lord Krishna, Vishnu, who was universally obeyed, rendered all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandu by accepting posts ranging from chariot driver to president to messenger, friend, night watchman, and so on, according to the will of the Pandavas, obeying them like a servant and offering obeisances like one younger in years. When he heard this, Maharaj Pariksit became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. So what's happening here is that Maharaj Pariksit, in his capital, Hastinapur, he has heard that there are symptoms that the age of Kali has entered into his kingdom. And being unable to tolerate the thought of his citizens suffering from the pangs of Kali Yuga, he has gone out to see how things are going. And along the way, everywhere he went, the citizens were glorifying his predecessors and glorifying him. And this is making him very happy. Just as we should become very happy when we're hearing about Krishna and Krishna's pure devotees. Hare Krishna Bhaktajan. Haribol. When he heard this, Maharaj Pariksit became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. This is the goal of life. When we hear the pastimes of Krishna, our heart is supposed to become mad in love. That's the goal. But at least we should be really interested. We should be eager to hear. The goal of our sadhana, the goal of our regulations and following rules and everything is for this purpose, to purify our hearts, to purify our senses, to purify our minds and intelligence, so that we can like to hear about Krishna. Purport. Lord Krishna is everything to the unalloyed devotees, like the Pandavas. The Lord was for them the Supreme Lord, the spiritual master, the worshipable deity, the guide, the chariot driver, the friend, the servant, the messenger, and everything they could conceive of. And thus the Lord also reciprocated the feelings of the Pandavas. Maharaj Pariksit, as a pure devotee of the Lord, could appreciate the Lord's transcendental reciprocation of the feelings of his devotees, and thus he himself also was overwhelmed with the dealings of the Lord. Simply by appreciating the dealings of the Lord with his pure devotees, one can attain salvation. I'll repeat that. Simply by appreciating the dealings of the Lord with his pure devotees, one can attain salvation. The Lord's dealings with his devotees appear to be ordinary human dealings, but one who knows them in truth becomes at once eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. The Pandavas were so malleable to the will of the Lord that they could sacrifice any amount of energy for the service of the Lord. And by such unalloyed determination, they could secure the Lord's mercy in any shape they desired. Text 17. Now you may hear from me of what happened while Maharaj Pariksit was passing his days hearing of the good occupations of his forefathers and being absorbed in thought of them. Text 18. The personality of religious principles, Dharma, was wandering about in the form of a bull, and he met the personality of earth in the form of a cow, who appeared to grieve like a mother who had lost her child. She had tears in her eyes, and the beauty of her body was lost. Thus Dharma questioned the earth as follows. Purport. The bull is the emblem of the moral principle, and the cow is the representative of the earth. When the bull and the cow are in a joyful mood, it is to be understood that the people of the world are also in a joyful mood. The reason is that the bull keeps production of grains in the agricultural field, and the cow delivers milk, the miracle of aggregate food values. The human society, therefore, maintains these two important animals very carefully so that they can wander everywhere in cheerfulness. But at the present moment, in this age of Kali, both the bull and the cow are now being slaughtered and eaten up as foodstuff by a class of men who do not know the Brahminical culture. The bull and the cow can be protected for the good of all human society simply by the spreading of Brahminical culture as the topmost perfection of all cultural affairs. By advancement of such culture, the morale of society is properly maintained, and so peace and prosperity are also attained without extraneous endeavor. When Brahminical culture deteriorates, the cow and bull are mistreated, and the resultant actions are prominent by the following symptoms. Jai Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gauri Thai Ki Jai, Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. When Brahminical culture deteriorates, the cow and the bull are mistreated, and the resultant actions are prominent by the following symptoms. Text 19. Dharma, in the form of a bull, asked, "Madam, are you not hale and hearty? Why are you covered with the shadow of grief? It appears by your face that you have become black. Are you suffering from some internal disease? Or are you thinking of some relative who is away at a distant place? Purport. The people of the world in this age of Kali are always full of anxieties. Everyone is diseased with some kind of ailment. From the very faces of the people of this age, one can find out the index of the mind. Everyone feels the absence of his relative who is away from home. The particular symptom of the age of Kali is that no family is now blessed to live together, to earn a livelihood. The father lives at a place far away from the son, or the wife lives far away from the husband, and so on. There are sufferings from internal diseases, separation from those near and dear, and anxieties for maintaining the status quo. These are but some important factors which make the people of this age always unhappy. Text 20. I have lost my 3 legs and now am standing on one only. Are you lamenting for my state of existence? Or are you in great anxiety because henceforward the unlawful meat eaters will exploit you? Or are you in a sorry plight because the demigods are now bereft of their share of sacrificial offerings, because no sacrifices are being performed at present? Or are you grieving for living beings because of their sufferings due to famine and drought? Purport. With the progress of the age of Kali, 4 things particularly, namely the duration of life, mercy, the power of recollection, and moral or religious principles will gradually diminish. Since Dharma, or the principles of religion, would be lost in proportion of 3 out of 4, the symbolic bull was standing on 1 leg only. When 3/4 of the population of the whole world become irreligious, the situation is converted into hell for the animals. In the age of Kali, godless civilizations will create so many so-called religious societies in which the personality of Godhead will be directly or indirectly defied. And thus, faithless societies of men will make the world uninhabitable for the saner section of people. There are gradations of human beings in terms of proportionate faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The first-class faithful men are the Vaishnavas and the Brahmanas, then the Kshatriyas, then the Vaishyas, then the Shudras, then the Mlechas, the Yavanas, and at last the Chandalas. The degradation of the human instinct begins from the Mlechas, and the Chandala state of life is the last word in human degradation. The word Chandala means dog eaters. In other words, when human beings start eating dogs, that's the end of civilization. All the above terms mentioned in Vedic literatures are never meant for any particular community or birth. They are different qualifications of human beings in general. There is no question of birthright or community. One can acquire the respective qualifications by one's own efforts. And thus the son of a Vaishnava can become a Mlecha, or the son of a Chandala can become more than a Brahmana, all in terms of their association and intimate relation with the Supreme Lord. The meat eaters are generally called Mlechas, but meat eaters are not Mlechas. But all meat eaters are not Mlechas. Those who accept meat in terms of beef is forbidden in the scriptures, and the bulls and cows are offered special protection by followers of the Vedas. But in this age of Kali, people will exploit the body of the bull and the cow as they like, and thus they will invite sufferings of various types. The people of this age will not perform any sacrifice. The mleccha population will care very little for performances of sacrifices, although performance of sacrifice is essential for persons who are materially engaged in sense gratification, sense enjoyment. In the Bhagavad Gita, performance of sacrifices is strongly recommended. The living beings are created by the Creator, Brahma, and just to maintain the created living being progressively towards the path of back to Godhead, the system of performing sacrifice is also created by Him. The system is that the living beings live on the produce of grains and vegetables, and by eating such foodstuff, they get vital power of the body in the shape of blood and semen, and from blood and semen, one living being is able to create other living beings. But the production of grains, grass, and so on becomes possible by rain. And this rain is made to shower properly by performance of recommended sacrifices. Such sacrifices are directed by the rites of the Vedas, namely Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva. In the Manusmriti, it is recommended that by offerings of sacrifice on the altar of the fire, the sun god is pleased. When the sun god is pleased, he properly collects water from the sea, and thus sufficient clouds collect on the horizon, and rains fall. After sufficient rains fall, there is sufficient production of grains for men and all animals, and thus there is energy in the living being for progressive activity. The mlechas, however, make plans to install slaughterhouses for killing bulls and cows along with other animals, thinking that they will prosper by increasing the number of factories and live on animal food without caring for performance of sacrifices and production of grains. But they must know that even for the animals, they must produce grass and vegetables, otherwise the animals cannot live. And to produce grass for the animals, they require sufficient rains. Therefore, they have to depend ultimately on the mercy of the demigods, like the sun god, Indra, and Chandra. And such demigods must be satisfied by performances of sacrifice. This material world is a sort of prison house, as we have several times mentioned. The demigods are the servants of the Lord, who see to the proper upkeep of the prison house. These demigods want to see that the rebel living beings who want to survive faithlessly are gradually turned toward the supreme power of the Lord. Therefore, the system of offering sacrifice is recommended in the scriptures. The materialistic men want to work hard and enjoy fruitive results for sense enjoyment. Thus, they are committing many types of sins at every step of life. Those, however, who are consciously engaged in the devotional service of the Lord are transcendental to all varieties of sin and virtue. Their activities are free from the contamination of the three modes of material nature. For the devotees, there is no need for performance of prescribed sacrifices, because the very life of the devotee is a symbol of sacrifice. But persons who are engaged in fruitive activities for sense enjoyment must perform the prescribed sacrifices, because that is the only means to get free from the reaction of all sins committed by fruitive workers. Sacrifice is the means for counteracting such accumulated sins. The demigods are pleased when such sacrifices are performed, just as prison officers are satisfied when the prisoners are turned into obedient subjects. Lord Chaitanya, however, has recommended only one yajna, or sacrifice, called the Sankirtana yajna, the chanting of Hare Krishna, in which everyone can take part. Thus, both devotees and fruitive workers can derive equal benefit from the performance of Sankirtan and Jagya. Text 21. Is it possible for that fan to be off? Or is it necessary? Anybody here that knows? Okay. Text 21. The bull is continuing to inquire from the cow. In other words, Dharma, religion, is continuing to inquire from the earth. Are you feeling compunction for the unhappy women and children who are left forlorn by unscrupulous persons? Or are you unhappy because the goddess of learning is being handled by brahmanas addicted to act against the principles of religion? Anyone read any newspaper lately? The headlines? You know what's going on? I'll read that again. Or are you unhappy because the goddess of learning is being handled by brahmanas addicted to acts against the principles of religion? Or are you sorry to see that the brahmanas have taken shelter of administrative families that do not respect Brahminical culture? Purport. In the age of Kali, the women and children, along with the brahmanas and cows, will be grossly neglected and left unprotected. In this age, illicit connection with women will render many women and children uncared for. Circumstantially, the women will try to become independent of the protection of men, and marriage will be performed as a matter of formal agreement between man and woman. In most cases, the children will not be taken care of properly. The brahmanas are traditionally intelligent men, and thus they will be able to pick up modern education to the topmost rank. But as far as moral and religious principles are concerned, they shall be the most fallen. Education and bad character go ill together, but such things will run parallel. The administrative heads as a class will condemn the tenets of Vedic wisdom and will prefer to conduct a so-called secular state, and so the so-called educated brahmanas will be purchased by such unscrupulous administrators. Even a philosopher and writer of many books on religious principles may also accept an exalted post in a government which denies all the moral codes of the Shastras. The brahmanas are specifically restricted from accepting such service, but in this age they will not only accept service, but they will do so even if it is the meanest quality. These are some of the symptoms of the Kali age, which are harmful to the general welfare of human society. Text 22. The so-called administrators are now bewildered by the influence of this age of Kali, and thus they have put all state affairs into disorder. Are you now lamenting this disorder? Now, the general populace does not follow the rules and regulations for eating, sleeping, drinking, mating, and so on, and they are inclined to perform such anywhere and everywhere. Are you unhappy because of this? Purport. There are some necessities of life on a par with those of the lower animals, and they are eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. These bodily demands are for both the human beings and the animals. But the human being has to fulfill such desires, not like animals, but like a human being. A dog can mate with a bitch before the public eyes without hesitation. But if a human being does so, the act will be considered a public nuisance, and the person will be criminally prosecuted. Therefore, for the human being, there are some rules and regulations, even for fulfilling common demands. The human society avoids such rules and regulations when it is bewildered by the influence of the age of Kali. In this age, people are indulging in such necessities of life without following the rules and regulations. And this deterioration of social and moral rules is certainly lamentable because of the harmful effects of such beastly behavior. In this age, the fathers and the guardians are not happy with the behavior of their wards. They should know that so many innocent children that are victims of bad association are warded by the influence of this age of Kali. We know from Srimad-Bhagavatam that Ajamila, an innocent son of a Brahmana, was walking down a road and saw a Shudra pair sexually embracing. This attracted the boy, and later on, the boy became a victim of all debaucheries. From a pure Brahmana, he fell down to the position of a wretched urchin, and it was all due to bad association. There was but one victim like Ajamil in those days, but in this age of Kali, the poor innocent students are daily of cinemas which attract men only for sex indulgence. The so-called administrators are all untrained in the affairs of a Kshatriya. The Kshatriyas are meant for administration, as the Brahmanas are meant for knowledge and guidance. The word Kshatrabandhu refers to the so-called administrators or persons promoted to the post of the administrator without proper training by culture. When they are themselves fallen in the standard of life. Therefore, by the influence of the age of Kali, everywhere, politically, socially, or religiously, everything is topsy-turvy. And therefore, for the sane man, it is all regrettable. Text 23. O Mother Earth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, incarnated himself as Lord Sri Krishna just to unload your heavy burden. All his activities here are transcendental, and they cement the path of liberation. You are now bereft of his presence. You are probably now thinking of those activities and feeling sorry in their absence. Purport. The activities of the Lord include liberation, but they are more relishable than the pleasure derived from nirvana or liberation. According to Jila Jiva Goswami and Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, the word used here is nirvana vidampitani, that which minimizes the value of liberation. To attain nirvana, liberation, one has to undergo a severe type of tapasya, austerity. But the Lord is so merciful that he incarnates to diminish the burden of the earth. Simply by remembering such activities, one can defy the pleasure derived from nirvana and reach the transcendental abode of the Lord, to associate with him, eternally engaged in his blissful, loving service. Text 24. Mother, you are the reservoir of all riches. Please inform me of the root cause of your tribulations, by which you have been reduced to such a weak state. I think that the powerful influence of time, which conquers the most powerful, might have forcibly taken away your fortune, which was adored even by the demigods. Purport. By the grace of the Lord, each and every planet is created fully equipped. So not only is this earth fully equipped with all the riches for the maintenance of its inhabitants, but also when the Lord descends upon the earth, the whole world becomes so enriched with all kinds of opulences that even the denizens of heaven worship it with all affection. But by the will of the Lord, the whole earth can at once be changed. He can do and undo a thing by his sweet will. Therefore, no one should consider himself to be self-sufficient or independent of the Lord. Text 25. The earthly deity, in the form of a cow, thus replied to the personality of religious principles in the form of a bull. O Dharma, whatever you have inquired from me shall be known to you. I shall try to reply to all those questions. Once you too were maintained by your four legs, and you increased happiness all over the universe by the mercy of the Lord. Purport. The principles of religion are laid down by the Lord himself, and the executor of such laws is Dharmaraj or Yamaraj. Such principles work fully in the age of Satya Yuga. In the Treta Yuga, they are reduced by a fraction of 1/4. In the Dwapara Yuga, they are reduced to 1/2. And in the Kali Yuga, they are reduced to 1/4, gradually diminishing to the 0 point. And then devastation takes place. Happiness in the world depends proportionately on the maintenance of the religious principles, individually or collectively. The best part of valor is to maintain the principles despite all kinds of odds. Thus one can be happy during the span of life and ultimately return to Godhead. So this is the beginning actually of a discussion between Dharma and Bhumi, between religion and the earth, symbolically representing the population of the earth. And we have now passed approximately 5,000 years of the Kali Yuga, and the Kali Yuga will last 432,000 years. So we can only imagine what it's going to be like 400,000 years from now. It's already, the symptoms that are being described here are already in full blossom before our eyes. And innocent people, the innocent people of the world, are getting less and less of the resources that are needed to live peacefully, and fewer people of the asuric nature, of the greedy nature, an angry nature. They are garnering more and more of the earth's resources, and eventually the cycle will close and the people will no longer be able to tolerate. And this has happened even within our memory, just within the last 1,000 years. It's happened how many times? Many times. One empire will come up and the people will get exploited, and then they'll rise up and something else will start, and again the cycle. And the quality of leadership gradually goes from kingly, saintly leaders, in the Brahminical age. Then, the businessmen will, the rich people, they will take over because they think they know more, and they will take the leadership. And gradually you come to the common person who actually is uneducated in moral and religious principles, and then the whole thing becomes an animalistic civilization. It's going there. It's already, in some places, it's already reached there. So we should not think that unless the whole world changes overnight, the Hare Krishna movement isn't working. It's going to take a very long time for this movement to spread. It's just come to the West 50 years ago, a little more than 50 years ago. And it's already causing, ruffles, waves in the persons who are responsible for what's going on today in human society. It mentioned anomalies. California's burning down, South India is washing away, and earthquakes and drought and overproduction and underproduction, and too much rain, too less rain. It's becoming like a regular daily affair. The whole human society is in a constant state of emergency. So even if they stop fighting with one another in wars, which they won't, but even if they were to stop, they would be in constant anxiety just to try to take care of the people who are being washed away by the waves of the reactions of inhuman activity. This is all discussed in the Srimad-Bhagavatam deeply, thoroughly, without leaving any stone unturned, without, looking the other way, sweeping something under the carpet. So when Krishna left 5,000 years ago, the question was asked, where does the shelter now? And what was the answer? Srimad-Bhagavatam. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the shelter. And when we do this regularly, every day, every night, every morning, whenever you can, sit down and hear the Bhagavatam carefully, submissively, with devotion and with faith that the solutions individually and therefore collectively, because the collective problems are made up of individual problems. You put a lot of individual problems together and you get one big collective mess. So each one of us, as an individual living being, has the option to hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, the instructions that the Lord came to give, to teach us how to think, how to feel, how to will, and how to work in such a way that there can be peace and the purpose of life can be reawakened in human society. Now just go on the street and ask everybody, what is the purpose of your life? Sometimes these crazy persons will go out and make some television show to embarrass people just by asking these questions, the simplest questions that everybody should be able to answer, and then they'll pick out the worst of the worst and then put them on TV to show how stupid people are. And people are trained by generations and generations of the evolution of these kinds of activities to lose the hope, to lose the will, to lose the ambition for peace. They're too busy just trying to survive to think about peace. Nasti buddhir ayuktasya nacha yuktasya bhavana nacha bhavyata kshantir ashantesa sukho sukham. If we don't connect with Krishna, we don't connect with the Supreme Lord of the universe in devotional service, we cannot have a controlled mind. And without a controlled mind and peaceful intelligence, we cannot be peaceful, and no one can be happy without peace. And therefore everyone's clamoring, everybody talking about it. So this is what to do. This is the practical solution. As impractical as it may seem, is it, to the vast majority of people, it is the only practical solution. To come in here to be educated spiritually. And Prabhupada's books have that potency. Before Srila Prabhupada's books arrived on the scene in the West, there were many translations of the Gita, at least, circulated in human society. And yet not one devotee of Krishna was made by any of those translations. And as soon as Prabhupada's Gita started to circulate, thousands. We may think, oh, it's not very many. No, it's relatively to what's going on, it's a lot. And it's increasing every generation, each generation. The piety that is earned by just simply hearing inquisitively, even if not faithfully, even just inquisitively, just to hear the truth being spoken in such depth, is enough to awaken anyone with just a little truthfulness left. And that's all that's left. That's what we're hearing about right now. Compassion's gone, austerity's gone, cleanliness is gone. There's a little bit of truthfulness left. That's it. So take advantage of it while you can, while there's still books speaking the truth plainly, clearly, strongly, without compromise. Hare Krishna. We'll stop the reading for tonight and ask for reflections. This is the format that we do every night. We read, for an hour or so, and then we have reflections from our mahants and our leaders. Reflections. Anything that you heard that stuck in your mind. Yes, Bhakti Hannah, the perpetual question machine.
We talked about people exploiting others to train the majority of human society to be hopeless.
Jai Shri Shri Gonitai ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhavi ki Jai, Shri Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Okay, go ahead, Hannah, you got the floor. That is a part of it.
Okay, so you talked about people exploiting others to train the majority of human society to be hopeless by giving their peers being down and hiding and so on. Are these entertaining for those who find satisfaction into putting others down?
Well, we have evidences of this, just, watch any, I don't watch these anymore. I stopped many years ago. But I know just from what you hear from being in the world and talking to people, that the sitcom, you know what a sitcom is? They're called situation comedies. And people sit down and watch them, and their plots, the scripts and the characters, they all get themselves into very difficult situations, embarrassing situations, and then everybody laughs. And that becomes the standard of happiness.
Is it because they can't associate with anything higher?
It's because the material energy is extremely powerful. The material energy, we've come here we are spiritual souls. We're spiritual beings. We're not material beings. We're identifying with the material body. We're thinking that we are the material body. And therefore, the desire of the soul, the purpose, the goal of life is to want to be happy. The goal of life is to become happy. No one gets out his agenda during the day to decide what he wants to do. And in the first instance, he wants to, run his car into a tree on the way to work, and then his boss is going to fire me because he didn't get into work on time. And then when he gets back, his wife's going to divorce him and leave him because he's not bringing him the bacon. And then the family's going to, and on and on. Right now in San Francisco, California, the poverty level income is $118,000 a year. Poverty level. You need to make more than $100,000 a year just to get a roof over your head. And that's not a joke. That's statistics. It's true. And the leaders are not doing anything about it. And there's all kinds of things they could do.
So they exploit us on a spiritual level, condemning our peers and viewing these things that don't serve us, but they also exploit us on a material level.
Of course, and our point isn't to become fatalists. The point of this knowledge is not to become fatalists and just accept your fate. The point is to read the books and to practice, to apply the teachings. When we hear the anomalies, apply them into your own personal life. And okay, it's difficult. The Kali Yuga is difficult, and it's getting more difficult all the time. But that doesn't mean that an individual person cannot learn to think and feel and will and act according to religious principles. Any individual person can do that. It's still available.
It's purifying.
Yes. Hare Krishna. Yes, Rashi Kendra, Kijai, welcome.
Thank you so much for all your daily efforts in keeping your reading sessions and inspiring many devotees. And I want to wish you a very happy appearance day today. It seems like when Srila Prabhupada was physically present, of course I did not personally witness it, but it looked like there was a tsunami of mercy just overpowering people, and people were forcefully swept by the tsunami to become devotees. We don't see, at least in Houston, for that matter in Texas.
It's going on.
A tsunami of people joining.
It's going on. It's going on. There's 100,000 devotees in Russia. 100,000 full-time devotees.
But at the rate at which
we don't see it here. We don't see it here as much. So therefore we think it's not going on. It's still going on. In India, the movement's increasing like leaps and bounds. They're building huge temples every day, more and more. Of course, that's the seat of the Vedic culture. And Prabhupada said it could start in India, but it has to start somewhere. And my proposal is that if we take up this reading of Srila Prabhupada's books on a daily basis, and just not so much talk about what we think, but listen to what Prabhupada is saying. That tsunami was caused by the monthly publication of one of his books. And we were going out, we were reading those books, and then going out and distributing them. And that's what caused the tsunami. It was the influence of Srila Prabhupada's association. While his Vapa was here, of course it was special, of course it was stronger. But the books are not different. I'm speaking from experience. from 4.5 years of doing this every single day without missing, and I promise you, I've got it written down. Making, ticking the boxes every day. I'm doing this, no matter what. No matter what. Last year I was here, typhoid fever, I almost died. I kept it up every day, no matter what, and I got witnesses. And you do that, and more people will do it. And it's growing now. It's growing. Maybe small in number. The number's not important right now. The number's not important right now. If you start thinking in terms of the number and evaluating and taking inspiration in the numbers, then you'll just become depressed and you'll stop. When the solution is right here in our hands.
Start somewhere.
Yes. The journey of 1,000,000 miles begins with one step. What time is it? We're a little late.
I was surprised to hear that comment because when I was first here in Houston,
This is Chandrasekhar Prabhu. He's my godbrother and one of the greatest preachers in the history of our movement. He's writing the tsunami already. He's still writing the tsunami. And he's in charge of the prison ministry. Because right now, more people are being incarcerated in this country per capita than in any time in the history of the world, in any other country in the world. I mean, he knows more about it than I do. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to say that when I first came to Houston, it was 1971, and there was a little house. You want to see a tsunami, open your eyes. There was a little house with Rita Ananda and Namamanjari and a few brahmacharis. Look at Houston now. Our Goswami Academy. You see Radha Nilamandava, a restaurant, and people's hearts are being changed all over the city imperceptibly. You don't see everywhere Maharaj and I go, we see tsunamis. I saw it this weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina. Did you know we have a church temple in Indianapolis, Indiana? We have, everywhere in India. 2 people started the Parvati Yatra in Maharashtra. Now 300 families come to our programs. And we have 3 goshalas, by the way, in Parvati. That's just Parvati. Anyways, my point is, look at Houston now. What a tsunami of love. I'm actually traveling. I'm seeing people in love with Krishna. And I'm aspiring, please let me love Krishna the way this humble devotee loves Krishna. Some devotees are just having darshan of Radha Nilamadava. The ladies can stay for hours in front of the deities because they love the deities. This is the tsunami. It's happening right now.
Correct. Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. When we think like this and when we speak like this, it will cause the tsunami. The more devotees who think like this and speak like this, it will cause the tsunami, it will grow. And we can't judge it by one generation. There's an estimate, 5,000 years it's going to take, according to Shastra. This is not because according to my imagination. This is according to Shastra. 10,000 years. There's a golden streak in the Kali, in the dark Kali. Actually, it's not even the Kali Yuga yet. It's still the Sandhya. The Sandhya is the beginning and the end. The beginning of the beginning of this age and the end of the last age mixed together. And there's qualities of both. And it's called the Sandhya. It lasts for 25,000 years. And we're still in that Sandhya. So when a person even just gets a book or comes to a festival, if you calculate the number of plates of prasadam that this movement has distributed all over the world in the last 50 years, the number of books, 500 million books have been distributed. 1.5 billion books have been distributed. And people are reading them. And they don't read them right away. Sometimes they stay on the shelf for a long time and somebody picks them up. We have a Bhakta John who just started coming to our reading sessions. And he came a couple of times and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, this is the real deal, isn't it?" Because he'd never heard anything like it before. Salt of the earth, master electrician, doing huge projects here and there and everywhere. He's coming every night he can. He's in it. And what's it doing to your heart? You can see it in his face. You can see it in his... So the soul never dies. The soul takes the next birth, and everything that they did, every name that they heard, every bite of prasad they've taken, it builds a bank account with interest. And there's no withdrawals. It's just, neha bikramana sti pratyavayo navidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayas. There's no diminution in this. Everything that you do in devotional service, even unconsciously, there's no diminution. It continues to grow in your heart. And when it grows to a certain extent, then the mind and intelligence start to work differently, and we wonder, hey, what's going on here? There must be something more better than this. And we start to inquire, and that's what happens, and it's happening. So there is a tsunami. So, tsunamis grow out in the ocean, and nobody can even see it. But the animals, they know, and they start going to the higher ground. And the human beings, because they're so bewildered by sense gratification, they just get swept away. So Lord Chaitanya's tsunami is going on.
Normally before a tsunami comes, the sea recedes.
Yeah.
So maybe all these bad elements you're seeing
No,
now...
Prabhupada told us this is the effect of effective preaching. If you saw something seeming like it was going back after a certain number of years after Prabhupada left, it was because the books stopped going out in the same numbers with the same degree of enthusiasm. And in those places where that's happening, the tsunami is going on. And okay, you can say in some places it may be easier than others. Yes, maybe. But I take Chandrasekhar's point. Yes. This is Krishna Katha is going to take over now, because he's supposed to be the MC for the next part of this program, and I'm, as usual, not stopping talking. Hare Krishna. I can't get off this subject. What can I say? Hey, Janaki's here. Is this her first darshan? No. Before she had. All right.
Hare Krishna.
I have nothing to do with what happens from now on. It's somebody else's business. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we're going to move on to the offerings portion. This is the gospel portion of the evening. So there's a few offerings. We have a limited amount of time. We know this. So we'll try to keep it at a nice clip. And we'll try to keep it to maybe 5 minutes per person. And it's okay, if it's less than 5 minutes. And we'll just keep it at a good clip. So we're going to start off, I think, yeah, I think we can begin here. And up next, we'll go with, oh, she's right here. Okay. We'll go next.
They said I should start. No, the disciples start.
I said I didn't have anything to do with that.
I've known Maharaj since we were distributing books together in the Chicago O'Hare Airport. Maharaj and many of the devotees there, Kavi Chandra, Vaishashika, Trikarari, and others, they're Maharatis. And I kind of assisted them. I sold some books, but they were the Maharatis. Maharaj is a professor I think I loved every man there. You were coming to see the deities, Radha Vrindavan Chandra, the Pune, and the beautiful Balaji Mandir at the top of the hill. It's one of the most beautiful temples in the world, in or outside this time. So there is a tsunami happening. When I was there, they asked us to speak, and they asked us the question that how have you stayed in the movement all these years? Maharaj has been in the movement probably 47 years, Maharaj, like that. And so have I. And so I answered that I take inspiration from my godbrothers, from His Holiness Dhanavir Goswami, from His Holiness Bhakti Kash Maharaj, and from His Holiness Kesava Bharati Maharaj. I get such strength from them and inspiration because they treat me as a friend and a brother. Isn't that kind of Him? And they embrace me. So I feel like the most fortunate man in the world to be here today. Everywhere I go, everywhere Maharaj goes, we see huge gatherings of devotees. You should have seen the Kumbh Rath Yatra. They just had the biggest Rath Yatra in the world in Dhaka. Where devotees have been preaching in that Muslim country all these years. Just see the expansion of the glories of my spiritual master. Everywhere you go. I mean, 600 Rath Yatras. So many in Indonesia, 20 in Florida. 90,000 Brahmanas now with more initiates. I saw them this weekend. Maharaj initiated his own. The tidal wave is all over the world. It's Lord Chaitanya's desire. It's going to happen. So I had one prayer, and I'm going to finish. I had one prayer that I call the prayer of the prisoner. But it could also be the prayer of the disciple. So some were just initiated recently. I'm reading this especially for them and for everyone. This is a verse Prabhupada used to use, and Dhanavir Swami also uses it periodically in his preaching. He's doing nicely, by the way. Although he has Parkinson's, he's going on Harinam every day for 2 hours a day in Kansas City, Missouri. And he speaks brilliantly. And he's completing Garga Samhita. Please find the Garga Samhita and order it from Rupanugadeva College in Kansas City. It will enrich your Gaudiya library. This is from Bhakti Rasamrita. Kamarina Kadina Vikida Palita Durne Deshas Desham Chata Manina Karana Pashtani Ushris Chaitan Jajapate Sampratam Lakulis Panaya Dashanam Mam Ayus Tastis Swami. So here's the translation. O my Lord, there is no limit to the unlimited, unwanted orders of my sensual desires. Although I have rendered them so much service, they have not shown any mercy to me. I have not been ashamed to serve these unwanted desires, nor have I even desired to give them up. O my Lord, O head of the Jatu dynasty, recently, however, my intelligence has been awakened, and I am now giving them up. Due to transcendental intelligence, I now refuse to obey the unwanted orders of these material desires, and I now come to you to surrender myself at your fearless lotus feet. Kindly engage me in your personal service and save me. So due to the intelligence given by the spiritual master, we can conquer these unwanted desires. Because the whole of ISKCON is a prison ministry. Who's not a prisoner in the Mahatattva? What is the purpose of the cosmos, of reformation? So I would like to thank Maharaj continuing to inspire me, for helping to keep me on this path of Krishna consciousness, and for helping to inspire others also. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhu. Up next, Prajna. This is the first devotee, Kesava Bharati Dasa Goswami. Her and her husband took initiation how many years ago? I'll give it to her and I'll let her tell you. Are you? Okay. Shyam, so you've been requested to come forward. You want to speak now or you want to do it at the end? So thanks after Prajna, we have Jayashree. So yes, if you could. Yeah, you're going to go next. Oh, not ready. Take it back. Yeah, good one. You'll be up next. Okay.
Before I start my offering, I would like to share something. Actually, I was also one of the followers of Guru Maharaj's reading. I was actually instructed by him to start reading when you started. And the first time actually I read on my own and I failed. I just read the first two cantos of Srimad-Bhagavatam and I stopped. And then you encouraged me to read again, so I started again. And now I just finished the whole Srimad-Bhagavatam and I started again. And I'm just fortunate to catch you in faith. When you start the broadcasting, I was also in Canto 10, so I just follow you and now I'm successful. So I learned the secret of success is to follow the footsteps of the Guru Maharaj. I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes, which are blinded by the darkness of ignorance, which are torchlight of knowledge. All glory to Srila Prabhupada, all glory to Sri Sri Gauranitai. Dearest Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances and deepest gratitude on this auspicious date of your appearance. This year is such a remarkable experience for me, as I am here in Houston. The first time I celebrate your Vyasa Puja with all the wonderful devotees in Houston with your personal presence. A few years ago, you told me that you have made a vow to systematically grant out loud 41 pages of Srila Prabhupada's books every day, by yourself or with devotees all over the world, under any good or bad situations, wherever you are for the rest of your life. From that day on, you never break your vow. You encourage everyone you met to meet to join this wonderful service, to revive the taste of reading Srila Prabhupada's books, which sadly fades gradually after the departure of Srila Prabhupada. You are dedicated to spread Krishna consciousness, the movement of Lord Chaitanya through the Bhaktivedanta purpose found in these most important books. Srila Prabhupada said everything he wanted to teach us can be found in his books. In his letter dated May 17, 1977 from Vrindavan, he said, "Whatever I have to speak, I have spoken in my books. Now you try to understand it and continue your endeavor. Whether I am present or not, it doesn't matter." Srila Prabhupada spoke with his Bhaktivedanta purpose are the most important gifts he gave to all devotees in the past, at present, and in the future. Guru Maharaj, you set a perfect example for everyone to follow. You never fell in your path of reading Srila Prabhupada books every day, even though you have been put into very difficult physical conditions like the life-threatening typhoid fever you suffered last year. This year you had your elbow fractured. But you continue the daily reading of Srila Prabhupada books in total ecstasy, just a few hours after your surgery, against the doctor's advice. Everyone around you and those related to you in the cyberspace through the Facebook broadcast can feel the bliss and sense of fulfillment when you read the books out loud. You are totally absorbed in the reading that will transcend all the physical suffering and inconvenience of the body. This can only be done by one having total faith and conviction in Srila Prabhupada, and by one who has committed to the greatest mission of spreading the holy name of Lord Chaitanya to every town and village over the world, if not over through the cyberspace. Dear Guru Maharaj, you mentioned that the real hearing is one who hears submissively with full faith, without envy, argument, and doubt. Only in this way the words can enter the heart to purify our consciousness and make the necessary transformation. This is the only way on the path to self-realization. Srila Prabhupada said in the purport of Srimad-Bhagavatam 1:15-51, the narration of the personality of Godhead and his devotees is absolute in itself, and thus to hear it with a devotional attitude is to associate with the Lord and constant companions of the Lord. For the process of hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam, one can attain the highest perfection of life, namely going back home, back to Godhead without failure. Thus, success is guaranteed. Furthermore, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that there is no question of stopping. Even if one has read these topics many times, you should go on reading again and again, because Bhagavad Gita, the words spoken by Krishna, and spoken by Krishna's devotees about Krishna, are Amritam, nectar. The more one drinks this Amritam nectar, the more he advances in his eternal life. Srila Bhagavatam, Canto 7, 14, text 3 to 4, purport. One has to hear it again and again. This is exactly what you are doing the past few years, to read out loud Srila Prabhupada's books again and again, and delivers the nectar to everyone. I'm so fortunate to be able to join this party and relish this Amritam. Whenever I visit you in Govardhan, or through the daily broadcast, and of course, here in Houston with you sitting in front of all the lovely devotees, who are as committed as you are. The daily reading of Srila Prabhupada's books has become the vital part of my sadhana. Please accept my deepest gratitude for this wonderful service you have brought to everyone. Kindly bless me with your mercy that I can continue this service and share it with others for the rest of my life. Recently, you have started the recording of the audiobook of Srila Prabhupada's book. This is your lifelong wish, and now is gradually manifesting through your dedicated work and the assistance from devotees in Houston. You are committed to finish this great service, which will take up most of your time and energy in the coming few years. It is such an amazing service. This audiobook will be the most precious gift to all devotees, generations after generations. By hearing Srila Prabhupada's teachings directly through a pure devotee like you, Srila Prabhupada will be situated at the center of our spiritual practice and keep our movement on the right track without deviation. On your appearance day, let me pray to the most merciful Shishirada Nidamada to grant you good health, such that you can continue this wonderful service of daily reading of Srila Prabhupada's book and spread the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through this book reading revolution that marks the heart transformation process of everyone. Wish you remain graceful in service to Srila Prabhupada, always in debt for your mercy bestowed upon me, your insignificant servant, Jai Shri Devidas.
Hare Krishna. also she knows how to get people well. And she's seen people die a lot with that. And therefore she came to this conclusion that there's something more to it. It's life beyond this body. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for that wonderful summary.
Hare Krishna. Actually, we're going to go to Rajnita first, and after that, everything else.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Om Vishnu Pradaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhagavate Shrimati Kesava Bharati Dasa Goswami. I'm not able to speak a lot, I'm keeping a good health, but I'm just reading it. Kindly accept my humble obeisances to your lotus feet. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I am very thankful to Lord Krishna for his mercy and blessings that you accepted this fallen soul as your disciple, which changed my life forever. I feel very protected under your guidance by reading and listening Bhagavad Gita as it is. Thank you for giving me and my family the mercy of your association and Krishna. Wishing you good health for years to come. All glories to Gurudev on this special day. Dear servant.
That was very nice. Yulula is from Denver, and he's been doing a lot of book distribution this week. I think on Sunday or Saturday there was 75 books distributed.
Just the beginning. Just the beginning. Shama Sundar and make sure it happens to Hare Krishna.
And they went out to day 2, and I'm going to let them tell you how many it is.
Pleasure, Sri Prabhupada. Sri Sri Radha Madhava, retired, Giriraj Maharaj, His Holiness Kesava Bharati Dasa Goswami Maharaj. We distributed 14 books in campus universities. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances in the dust of your feet. All glories to His divine loving grace, Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Prabhupada's books. May we always stay connected with Him and swim in the ocean of their love. In 2015, you made a vow to read Srila Prabhupada's books out loud until the end of your time on this planet. On top of that, you wrote your Vyasa Puja, 2014. You wrote your Vyasa Puja offering with Srila Prabhupada in 2015. Now I have made my full commitment to use whatever energy I have left in my old age to help devotees I meet revive their taste for reading your books and to teach new people coming into your society to become fixed in the basics of Krishna consciousness, especially in reading your books out loud. Not only have you been successful in following through with these vows, but you have turned it into a contagious addiction. Let's call it Prabhupada fever. For anyone holding on to attachments to the body, home, family, cars, nation, speculative philosophy, and preconceived notions, anyone who catches a case of Prabhupada fever, the prognosis is bleak. Many that come into hearing distance of you will unfortunately have to count their material lives over, for they will have already contracted Prabhupada fever. The symptoms include, but are not limited to, the desire to associate and read Prabhupada's books out loud in the company of Vaishnavas, more and more attentive hearing of the holy names of the Lord, and ultimately a desire to give up mundane activities and completely surrender to Guru and Gauranga, devoting oneself to propagation of the Mahamantra in transcendental literature. This is no fluke. This is not a coincidence. This is not inexplicable. As it says in the Sveshvatavattara Upanishad, only those who have implicit faith in the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Your taste for reading Srila Prabhupada's is proof positive that you are fully surrendered to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. A devotee of the Lord automatically becomes uninterested in the enchantment of material existence because he is a rasa graha, or one who has tasted the sweetness of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. This is from the report on Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.5.19. Dear Gurudev, you are a rasa graha, a surrendered servant. Every day I become more and more enamored how you are a living, breathing example of what Guru Ashraya is, what unflinching faith is, what it means to be a perfect representative of Srila Prabhupada, what absorption in Krishna looks like, and what to speak of the effect you're having on all of those fortunate enough to be around you. The real report of the Vedas is loving service to the Lord in all his parts and parcels, with the understanding that everything belongs to Krishna and is meant for his pleasure. Prabhupada writes in the report of Bhagavad Gita 4.17 that to understand all this, one has to associate with authorities in Krishna consciousness and learn the secrets from them. You are that authority, Gurudev, and you are freely sharing your taste for hearing, chanting, and service through your actions in Krishna consciousness and daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. Like Arjuna says in chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, I am never satiated in hearing about you, for the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. But even more so, as is explained in the third verse of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Shukamukad Amritadrava Samyukam, because it is emanated from the lips of Kesava Goswami, it has become even sweeter and more palatable. The same is true to hear it from you because you are the same is true to hear from you because Prabhupada's reports become that much sweeter. The sugar candy for all of us suffering from the jaundice of the mentality of possessiveness. Hearing you read Srila Prabhupada's books out loud is the perfection of Guru Parampara. This is exactly what Prabhupada foresaw in the future of ISKCON. But on top of all of this, you are giving us fearlessness to overcome the trials of material existence, always encouraging us to understand that Krishna is maintaining us all, that he is our best friend, and is, just like you, bending over backwards to help us out of this mess of the mind, false ego, and the dark well of material attachments and suffering. The fearlessness that you have and are passing along to all of us has been exemplified by your bout of typhoid fever and the recent surgery on your elbow. You are beyond the dualities of the material world and fully situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge. Therefore, you keep on hearing and chanting, inspired and challenging us every day. This last year you came to me in a dream. I was feeling down on myself and a bit confused, but in this dream you told me in your ever-encouraging voice, just look how far you've come. Yes, Kali Yuga is an endless sea of faults and misdirections, but by the grace and mercy of Srila Prabhupada, there are completely surrendered souls like you who are guiding and lifting up these bedraggled, fearful, and confused jivas to real purpose, real meaning, hearing, chanting, glorifying, and serving the Lord and all of his eternal associates. Today, on your holy appearance day, I wholeheartedly pray that I may, in your words, get on the train and keep it going. May I always be filled with humility and gratitude, so that every day I may better serve you in your mission to serve Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. I also have a present for you. These are some bookmarks. Those are done readings with Maharaj. He likes to read the Mahima Stotra. I made him some bookmarks with the Mahima Stotra for him to pass on to others.
In case you didn't get that because you speak so fast, I'm also trying to teach everyone how to speak. In order to want people to hear some problems. And he wrote a letter to Prabhupada asking how to solve the problems. And he wrote a letter back and he said, if you do not hear sufficiently and properly, then after some time, even dressing the deities will be like dressing dolls. So whatever you do, if you want it to be pure, if you want it to be pleasing to Krishna, if you want it to elevate yourself as much as possible, then you must hear Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Everybody can get one of these afterwards.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have Uki Mantra, initiated on the same day as Rukma. And this was 6 weeks ago.
Now I'm going to translate that. His name is Ukti Tantra. Ukti Tantra means Krishna, the name of Krishna, one who is subordinate to the words of his pure devotees.
Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Vikale Srimati Kesava Bharati Dasa Goswami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Srimati Paschati Deshapane. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to you and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to this holy day of your appearance. Please allow me to write about you in the most glorious way possible. I want to express my gratitude to you for showing me the way in Krishna consciousness. You were always here to lend a helping hand. I feel like I can always reach out to you, and you always respond in the most kind and loving way possible. You are the best spiritual mentor. There are some main things I wanted to appreciate about you, especially because how they have inspired me and encouraged me in what I'm going through in my life. The main thing I wanted to appreciate about you is your light-hearted spirit. Every time I'm around you, I just get filled up with this lightweight happiness and this bliss that is overwhelming. It's contagious. It completely eradicates the material miseries. Every experience with you is completely new, and every time I see you, I can count on it being a spontaneous and colorful interaction. There's a special ease to you that is everlasting. Even though your body may be aging, you don't show it. The special youth is not only unchanged, it is increasing. It shows that you are completely beyond the body. You show that in spite of the bodily situation, you can be completely happy beyond that. No matter what is going on with your body, still you're doing your readings and serving Srila Prabhupada. You show that service is the most important thing, that it must be done. Like with your readings, rain or shine, caste or no caste, you're there and you're always your jolly old self. Last year when you had your intense blood transfusion and were completely out of contact and bedridden for several weeks, still you never missed a day. In fact, you saw it in a completely Krishna conscious light, and you even used it as an example to preach. You show that service is the topmost, and if we can just keep serving Srila Prabhupada, then everything else will follow. These examples are so relevant to me because I've been experiencing so much distress due to the body and mind over the past couple of years. But you're a perfect example to witness because you perfectly display detachment and aloofness from the demands of the body and mind. You're on a completely separate level from your material body, and you inspire others to come to this state too. Like you said yourself, luckily we're not our elbows. Whenever I come to a place of distress or frustration, I can remember your instructions and how free you are, and it inspires me to keep moving in Krishna consciousness. Thank you for setting this example for me of how to act in Krishna consciousness and showing me the character of acting for something beyond myself. Hare Krishna, your aspiring servant, Mukti Tantra Das.
Thank you, Prabhu. Up next, we have a good friend of mine, my roommate for a long time. We have known each other for many years, and he was such an influence on me.
I sat there and we met by a couple others. Anyway, we also had met both. And also before that, actually, he was one of the big religious leaders in Los Angeles. San Francisco. In the airport, distributing a lot of books. So he exemplifies Shiva Vaishnava. He touched on everything that he does. And as everyone else has already pointed out, I think what Mars is doing now is actually what this movement really needs. Prabhupada said also that the books are the basics. And he's personally establishing that again. So I remember when we used to play basketball, the coach would say, you have to learn the basics, the fundamentals. So Mars is like that, he's pushing the fundamentals.
Mental memory. Mental memory.
Yes. Actually, he's always been absorbed in reading Prabhupada's books. In the Radharama days, he was in the office, he was in charge of the management. And our Guru Maharaj, he's like a CEO. He said he's one of the generals. When the movements first started, when the ways would go out on book distribution, they'd bring all the money back and throw it all into one pot. But then when Goswami took over, he made it that more organized. Everyone he set up the quota system, everybody had quotas to fulfill, and Radharama party, he could fill out. Maharaj in charge of making the financial statements. Which Goswami always wanted to look at every month. He wanted a financial report.
inspiring for Kesava Bharati Dasa Goswami. And
Om Shri Krishna Krishna Bhutale Shrimati Kesava Bharati Dasa Goswami. Om Shri Krishna Krishna Bhutale Shrimati Bharati Dasa Goswami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Nirvishesha Sri Radha Swami Shri. Prepare this offering for you, and hope that you will be pleased with this holy prayer. Maharaj, I've only recently become your aspiring disciple, but within a short time, by your kindness and mercy, I have felt more safety and certainty in the process of Krishna consciousness than ever before. On the day I approached you to become a disciple, you could see that I was afraid to do so. You told me that I didn't have any confidence in myself, and that was okay, because I only need to have confidence in my spiritual master and Krishna. These words, I think, will stay in my heart and mind forever. And this is easy to see that I have the ability to perceive things in a person that even they cannot see themselves. This really is a heart-touching quality, the quality of the bona-fide spiritual master. Aside from recently formally approaching you, I was reflecting on my good fortune to have had your association with your disciples, who have given and continue to give mercy with shelter at the New Logic Ashram in Colorado. My initial training in the Bhakti program went about one of your disciples that was formed entirely on the process of hearing 41 pages daily from Srimad-Bhagavatam, preceded by Sanatana Goswami's prayers and Mahima Sutra. Exposure to this regulated and intense hearing and chanting of the Bhagavatam has had a very powerful impact on my life in Krishna consciousness. And this was all directly done by your mercy and the mercy of your disciples. Even to this day, I can still perceive the effects from this program and a strong emphasis on reading Prabhupada's books as the reason. I pray to you that I may become a humble service, to learn to conduct my life in a way that will be genuinely pleasing to you. Although my mind seems to be full of so many things that are not favorable for devotional service, I pray that you will bestow your mercy on this conditioned soul, and upon all of us who are confused and bewildered by the struggle for existence in this material world. With a grateful heart, I thank you for accepting this blessed food offering. I thank you also for your constant kindness and encouragement. We are really looking forward to assisting you in your service to Srila Prabhupada and his mission for yourself, for his guidance.
Dr. Matt is here, and he came up to Denver just to kind of be with us, see what the ashram was like. And he went out with Austin, if I remember right. He was in sales before, and also with but he said particularly about Austin that everyone he met and gave a book, they were very happy when they left. Is that true?
Yeah, very true. Thank you.
we have another doctor of yours, Bhakti Swami, and really like to say something.
Namo Namah. When I think of Kesava Bharati Maharaj, I see just what I saw just now. Smiling face, always blissful, always absorbed in Krishna consciousness, and very much concerned about others, lives for others, is willing to give himself fully to others just to help them to come up in Krishna consciousness. So thank you so much for being who you are. Those of you who have made a very good decision to surrender yourself at his lotus feet, have made a very good decision. You're in very good hands. You're at very good feet. You're well looked after. You're well on your way back to Godhead. He lives in the spiritual world, literally. In Govardhan. He's in America, in body and heart and soul in Govardhan. So thank you very much for being who you are. Hare Krishna.
Up next, we have Dr. John, the master
Well, I feel very humbled to say something I really deserve. I do thank you very much for who you are. I was going to say happy birthday, but happy appearance day. I'd like to thank you for the mission of dedicating your life to, that you dedicate your life to, that's reading and promoting the books Prabhupada translated and wrote, and focusing on that he's effective for the good of the lives of many people and showing them the best way to live. He's shining Krishna's light into the darkness of the Kali Yuga, and we are all benefiting from his mission he has taken upon himself. I know he's done much more in his life that's worthy of praise, as I'm sure many of you here can personally attest to. But this is the time and place in life where I've had the privilege of coming to your appointments and in practical battles. He has faithfully handed down to us the knowledge he received from a long line of outstanding Vaishnavas. And I know Lord Krishna and his Guru Prabhupada look upon him with faith. And we are all here today to render our measure of thanks, gratitude, appreciation, and lasting encouragement to this eternal soul, Kesava Bharati Goswami, who has found an ocean of truth, put on saffron robes, and jumped in with both feet. Thanks for all you do, and many more. Happy birthday.
Up next, we have Dr. Matt, and
fortunate to have met you, and more fortunate to have been at the right place and time for you to have shown me so much favor, and for me to hear you read the books. I was told when I met you that you had the title of sannyas, and that was a big deal. I didn't quite know what it meant at the time. And in most organizations, the title is what gives the leader their power. In your case, one does not need to know your title in order to know who you are or where you derive your power. I have experienced this firsthand as I took steps to follow you. I would worry about things, and you would gently remind me, don't worry, everything is already being arranged. And in the short time I've had the pleasure to know you, I've seen things arranged on my behalf just from your association. I feel so blessed and honored for you to have seen anything in me, let alone share meals with me or invite me to travel and learn from you. I had all but given up on spiritual life, and through your kindness, grace, and patience, Krishna has arranged things in ways I would have never thought possible. Just as you said, I'm so excited to travel with you, Maharaj. I feel my life has new purpose, and I feel so blessed to not only look up to you and follow you, but consider you my friend. Have a very blessed Appearance Day.
Thank you very much. That hasn't been around very long, but I don't know if you picked up on it. It's very intelligent and articulate. And I'm sitting here on this seat to tell you that the time will come when you'll be the leader of Krishna consciousness. He drove up to Denver, and I took my little 5-day break, supposedly, from the audio recording of Chaitanya Charitamrita to go there. And he took me to the airport, dropped me off, and then Krishna dropped me on the floor, and I ended up with a fractured elbow. And so there he is in Denver, and I'm, Houston with a fractured elbow. And I am thinking that we're advised by some of my dear brothers that time is coming, Maharaj, when you're not going to be able to just run around and go by yourself without anybody to help. So I first thought, well, okay, I'll agree to let the airlines put me on the plane. That's as far as I can go. But then when it came back down to Houston and we started to talk, it became clear that I wanted to give him the opportunity to hear these books and ask any question for as long as he needed to until he gets completely fixed in Krishna consciousness and inspired to make preaching Krishna consciousness your life in school. That's my commitment to you. So now he's going to travel with me, to India and back, and then we'll see where he ends up. Thank you for coming forward, Hare Krishna.
So next we have Paki Hannah.
Hey, Sean, you're taking notes, right? Taking notes? Counting? Yeah. This is only 3 months. So add 4 years, do the math. Okay?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 2 books for 2 weeks trying to prepare a speech. I wanted it to be perfect because you've given all of us so much. But every time I tried to write, there was something inside of me that said, just let it be spontaneous. Because you always teach us that love of Krishna is spontaneous. So I wanted to treat you He does. I watched it tomorrow Krishna Goswami video, The King of Knowledge. And Matt told me, he said, "Did you see Maharaj video?" I said, "No, you didn't recognize it?" I didn't think that you could understand. Like, I didn't think that I could notice and point out who Maharaj was just because his body was so different now. And then when I finally noticed him, I was watching the way that he moved and the way that he talked, and I saw that in that moment he was so young. And then I was reading that night, I was like, wow, he was very liberated. And I was reading that night and I was like, okay, let's see if I can just go past his body and try to get to that character that I saw today in that video. And I looked into Maharaj's eyes and I was bewildered. I said, oh my goodness, he's younger than that. He's younger than that moment when he had a younger body. Like I said, I didn't write this speech, I'm just speaking from what I heard myself. But nevertheless, his love is overflowing. It's having an effect on me. It's having an effect on every single person that meets him that just makes an honest attempt. Even him not to go anywhere to go eat. And regardless how long we've been in this movement, I just came here 3 months ago. Old devotee or aspiring devotee or newly initiated devotee. Reading these books purifies our hearts and reminds us daily because Maya is very strong. When you wake up in the morning, if your first thought isn't, Krishna, it's okay. But get up and do something about it. And by watching Maharaj's videos on Facebook Live, you'll be doing yourself a great justice. Reading these books, just making an honest attempt is what I'm doing. Just an attempt that Krishna will reward you with so much mercy just by trying. So, may I continue to try?
Be my guest. I want to say one thing about this. I was just speaking with Maharaj. When we joined this movement, it was like this. 2-3 months, we were out the door, spreading Krishna consciousness. Isn't it? Take notes. 3 months. How many just came up and said what they said? Just to read Bhagavatam together. Take notes. This is the branch of Chaitanya's tree. And his not desire, his order was that every one of us accept this Krishna consciousness and spread it all over the universe. Hare Krishna.
Hey, Krishna! So we're going to change things up, and back here in the back, you can turn around just a little bit for 1 minute. We have Bhagavad Gita, and I'm going to turn it over to her here.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhagavatam Shrimad-Bhagavatam Namaste Saraswati Nirvishti Sarvati Rastajati Satana Vancha Kalpaturvastra Vivasindhuki Evacha Patitanam Mahadeva Vaishnavya Namo Kesava Bharati Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai!
Last year, I couldn't even offer my obeisances when he had his Vyasa Puja because Maharaj came over to me first, put a garland on me, and put dakshin in my lap. I was so astounded. In my 50 years at ISKCON, I never saw such a thing happen. So this is an indication of how he reaches out and touches everyone in a very personal way.
Thank you, Manji. Head back up to the front. And your nomination.
I'll get short. Like me. Our dearest Sir David, all glories to the best of your blessings. Please accept our praise. All glories to you on this auspicious day, and all glories to your beloved spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Prabhupada. We are thankful by Krishna's grace. You are here in Houston now for the second year in a row for your Vyasa Puja. We all pray for your continued well-being, as all of us wish to have your association for many, many years to come. Houston has some of the finest doctors in the world, and one of the largest medical centers in North America. Brave devotees, and they are ready to take care of your every health need. Even with your physical challenges, your unflinching devotion to the order of the spiritual master and to Buddha's birthday is truly inspiring. As part of your virtual audience, we as well as many others look forward to the daily dose of Srila Prabhupada's nectar. Like you mentioned, there is something happening here. We've had many new beginnings this year. We're thankful for all your support during this last year as we are making this transition. It was comforting to receive your thoughts and blessings in this time of change. It is reassuring to know that we have your guidance for our spiritual well-being. Thank you for connecting us to the common ground. Because of where we are living in the Bay Area, we are farther away from Houston Devotee Association and miss them tremendously. From your instruction, we understood and have been able to realize more that chanting this Maha Mantra is not different from associating with Krishna. It also brings us fond memories of where we grew up spiritually, right here where we met you. Recently, you reminded us of the very important fact that Vishnu Prabhupada is actually associated with Prabhupada himself. So by your instruction, we have more, even though it appears we have less. No doubt, continuous change is part of our world, yet admirably your devotion is steadfast, and the only change you ever exhibit is increase in your devotional service. With all our heart and soul, we thank you, Maharaj, for being our captain of consciousness and carrying us on the right path through this treacherous waters of the material world. Thank you for teaching us these invaluable transcendental techniques. Be confident in chant and be Prabhupada's following your instruction, knowing that you will steer us back to Krishna's spiritual will. Your eternal servant, Krishna Das, and your reverend Deeds.
Thank you for reading that. I don't think that would be anything. Sean Sir, Temple President, thanks. This will be the last offering, and we'll move on to the next part. The next one.
Namo Krishna Krishna Srimati Kesava Bharati Dasa Goswami. Namo Krishna Krishna Srimati Krishna Goswami. Namo Krishna Krishna Srimati Bhaktivinoda Swami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravamcha. Devi Sesa Srimati Prasya Vancha Tattva on this auspicious day, there are unlimited qualities that we cannot be able to describe fully. But I would like to completely used in Christmas service. And also then we see on the later part of your life that you dedicated quite a bit and took about that you utilize the fund to maintain and work project in India. I think there was the Gurudev desire to facilitate the Vaishnavas who visit the Vrindavan to have a peaceful atmosphere that they can really practice and go into the deep. That's all. I'm very commending for your dedication because it's not that easy in India to manage your own, but I think you have done a wonderful job. Renovating the property and maintaining at the highest level that is goes on. Then if we really reflect your life that then you should get little son or get deeply involved with the Gopi Brahmanas who has translated the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And you assisted and His Holiness Kesava Goswami editing those books. And then we see that Krishna really puts you in search of those transcendental literature that you can always absorb in your mind and heart about Krishna and nothing else. It facilitates you to work, to do the editing work of Sri Ram Maharaj, all those wonderful books. So you can see it, that you have been so much blessed by Krishna to remain fixed with the message. And I think I would like to commend you that you have set a very good example to reach the Prabhupada because it is very, very essential. If the ISKCON has to grow at the extent that what Prabhupada has arisen, we have to keep Prabhupada. And I think by leading and setting the good examples, I think you have done a tremendous service and you have blessed everybody and the Goswamis. On your daily activities also, that you always remain fixed. I think you are the most determined person that I have seen at least by so many difficulty come on your personal life. Take some lessons from your life. Therefore, as a manager also, a lot of the difficulties comes. But you never deviated and remain fixed on the path, whatsoever the advice. And by hearing the offering of all the disciples and the aspiring, this is really inspiring. Even that it's reminded us of 30 days ago what we were and how much we reached for. So I'm very thankful. His Holiness Kesava Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. One more request I would like to make on his auspicious day is like Lord Krishna Goswami Maharaj used to hold the kirtan in Mayapur in small. But as these see the demands, he expanded himself to go on the project that many people can take participate. So on this day I would like to make a humble request that now is the time has come that rather than reading in the sermons words, maybe you can accept the temple menu. It might be helpful to not further community. Thank you very much.
4 days before Lord Krishna Maharaj left this world, he brought me into his room, just me and him, and he said, I want you to come with me to Dallas and to Houston and to help me. And he went like this, move these communities. So I didn't understand all of what he meant at the time. And we were supposed to meet in Govardhan and discuss it. And then he left. So me, like so many who had deep relationships with him, were left hanging. So many things, so many plans, trying to help you all in that transition period, sincerely. And I remember I used to house programs every night, practically, when I was here for at least 4 times, 5 times a week for years. And I feel, and I said this last night before last, a deep relationship with this community and with you. And now I understand what he meant. You know, and this is all being arranged. This is all being arranged. You know, I'm not consciously, did any of these things. It's all being arranged. So, as a part of my payback plan to Krishna Maharaj and all of you who have tasted what it means to have to serve the spiritual master in separation for long periods of time. I just wanted to tell you that I think that something is being arranged. And if we work together, seriously together, we can create a facility here. I know that you are deeply committed to the deities and to the spiritual programs that Prabhupada gave us, as am I, although I haven't been here very much over the last, this time I was here, whatever. And, but I'll take that on board, what you just said, seriously, and try to be more in the public, but not at the expense of what I'm doing, because it's working. You know what they say? The best plan is the one that works. And don't, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing and let nature take its course. But I think that your words are prophetic. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Shri Krishna Maharaj.
Jai.
Shri Prabhupada.
Jai.
Thank all of you from the depths of my heart. It's true that I have this curse or blessing, depending on how you look at it. I see things when I look at people, and it causes me to commit myself very easily, personally, individually. And this is what we need. We need to think more about this than about the numbers. The numbers will come. Krishna's not going anywhere. We may be here, we may not be here. But we need to think more about this and do this more in our own personal relationships, in our dealings with one another. We need to expand this movement, because that's Lord Chaitanya's will. Krishna is everyone's God. Everyone is meant to come to the Krishna consciousness movement. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
So at this time we have a garland to present to Srila Prabhupada. If we could get an aisle right down the middle here, if you would, please. Can you do this? Sorry.
Srila Prabhupada ki!
Just the small garland, no? The small garland is yes, ma'am, sir. You want to, after that you can offer the chandan, no? This Maha Chandan. There's a little, yeah. I gotta go. Okay, whatever you do. All right. Okay, all right. It's horror. All right, maybe just a garland. Restroom is in the right?
Yeah. I'll come right back.
Hare
Samstapacharya, our loving divine grace, Srila Prabhupada ki Gayatri Leela Pravishna Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada ki Ananta Kori Vaishnavinda ki Vancharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Shri Rup Sanatan Bhadaraganath Shri Gopala Bharadas Raganath Sarvajaya ki Praise the Baho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Shri Radha Krishna Bhagavina Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Shri Mayapura Bhadvip Dham ki Jagannath Puri Dham ki Ganga Mayi Jamuna Mayi ki Shri Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi ki Gop Premanandi Shri Hare Ram Sankirtan ki Shri Hatmidanga ki Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution ki Transcendental Mahaprasad Distribution ki Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya, also there is a disgrace remind His divine grace, His holiness, Kesava Bharati Dasa Goswami,
That's it.
It's me, Rati, it's me!
That's transcendental currency.